think it's such a great question. And just for myself, like, this isn't over yet. In my character, there's still like an integration of this, because it's a very complex subject, because you're interacting with people that are identified. So in my more intimate relationships, they have an understanding of this, and so there is ability to speak about everything, which is so deeply relaxing and loving, and yeah, just to say everything, you know. So if I go into pleasing or fear or something, then I can just say that out loud. But then there's people that are totally not into this subject, and that's very interesting, because, you know, they're totally asleep, they're in denial, just the basic things, you know, that they're speaking to you and being passive aggressive and pretending they're happy. They think they're happy and they think they're being nice, but underneath they're being a real bitch, or, you know, like really like harsh, you know. So that's you know, and if you were to say anything, you would then kind of go into a bit of a therapy session with them, because in order to say something, you have to be able to point it out. So it's a bit harder. But there's subtle ways in which you can play with that, you know, sort of like really trying to own what you feel. And so when you say things, you know, I'm feeling a bit afraid now in a social situation or something, you just really try to own it. But they might think you're mad, but it's good to just do that, you know, to try to be as authentic as you can. So rather than saying like, I feel like you're being really like mean now or bitchy or something, you just come back to, I'm feeling really afraid, you know, or I feel afraid, or fear's coming up with this conversation, and that does quite a different thing. Yeah, I feel like as you get more and more into this and you explore more, then you're naturally going to be drawn to people that will allow you authenticity, because the more that you become aware of yourself, the more that when you step out of yourself, or you're not in line with what God wants to express, it feels like, rather than a tiny, tiny, tiny little pebble before, it feels like a massive, great boulder in your shoe. Like to not be able to be authentic. Because the more you become aware, what I think Pamela called intuition or God's will, you feel what God wants. You feel the movement of God more strongly. Like, it doesn't want to be a people pleaser. It doesn't want to be pleasing because it's afraid. It wants absolute authenticity. To be able to say, I feel afraid now, or I feel so much insane love now, you know. Like, to be able to really be yourself, or to be cooking a dinner for everybody and suddenly be like, yeah, suddenly I just don't want to do this anymore. You know, and just be like, and then the others have to, you know, own their own feelings, and you're like, oh, okay. But just to be able to be that authentic, like, it's so important. And it comes in the end, it's not so much masculine or feminine, or it comes in the end to all any of us want to do is to be devotees of God, to totally act out what God wants. And the feminine does tend to be this kind of more people-pleasing, more cooperative, more able to fit in socially. Not all the time, but that tends to be what the feminine is. And then when the feminine comes back to life, it still can have those qualities, but it's also more wild, more alive, more spontaneous, more loving, embracing. Yeah, total authenticity and honesty. It really wants that. The more masculine element wants the silence and the stillness, whereas the feminine wants, like, you know, this realness, this authenticity, to be able to scream and shout whenever it wants, you know, to really express all of it. And it's so deeply relaxing for the body to be authentic. The nervous system gets so wired when it's trying to lie. It's so much work to lie. It's not like you're purposely lying, but you're unconsciously lying, to try to fit into the box.